Well, hello everyone. It's time for episode 5 of the Music of Middle-Earth. And it's time to introduce our very first special episode in the series, the Soundscapes of Middle-Earth. I am your host, Jordan Rennells, and I'm a musician and teacher, and today I actually get to be a sound designer as well. Usually on the podcast we jump into Howard Shore's music for Peter Jackson's adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. We go into the books and histories and explore how Howard Shore evokes Tolkien's writing with his music, but today we're going to do something different. Today we're going to jump into the world of sound design. I have a really great reading prepared for this episode. We're going to start off with an introduction from our narrator, Shersten. And if you follow her on Instagram, then you've seen some of her work. But she's going to explain a bit about her story, and after that you'll get a chance to hear a great passage from A Journey in the Dark. I've created a total sound design and music accompaniment for it, and I've used Howard Shore's compositions as inspiration, but none of the music you hear is going to actually be from the soundtrack, just kind of inspired by it. And of course we have some awesome guest readings from Sisto and Shawn Marchese of the Prancing podcast. All right, I'll let Shersten take it away and tell you about her Tolkien story.
Hello, my friends. My name is Shersten. I have been a lover of Tolkien for a very long time. Probably since I was about 10 or 11, my mother first introduced me to the films, and not long after that, to the books. I'm a hairdresser from Colorado, but I also have a sewing business called Hooded and Cloaked. That is a direct quote from the films, actually. It's what Eomer describes Saruman as being an old man, hooded and cloaked. I make cloaks and various costumes for friends of mine, for cosplayers. I've done it for some Renaissance and reenactment friends, but I also make them for myself. I'm a cosplayer, and the majority of my cosplays are inspired by Middle-Earth and Tolkien's works. Most of them are elf inspired, but I've done a couple Rohirrim things as well. I recently just finished a gown for my engagement that was inspired by Arwen's coronation gown from The Return of the King. It's this beautiful green silk velvet dress, and it's probably the most beautiful thing I think I've ever made. Let's see. Jordan very kindly reached out to me not too long ago about this idea for his music-centered, music-themed Tolkien podcast, which I'd never heard of anything like it before, and I thought it was genius. I listened to a couple other Lord of the Rings podcasts, including an Unexpected podcast and The Cellar Door, A Journey into Middle-Earth, but I'd never thought of doing a music-inspired Tolkien podcast before. I am a musician as well. I play the flute, but not to the extent that Jordan is. He is brilliant. He has a mind for music and music theory that few people do. And I am super excited to see where he goes with this podcast. And I am honored to be a part of it. Thank you guys for listening, and keep listening to this podcast.
All right. I'm definitely so lucky to have met Shersten and started to work with her on this. I'm really excited. She's going to be our narrator every time we have one of these episodes. And the reading is about 6 minutes long, so get comfortable. Make sure that you have headphones in or earbuds in. It's not quite the same when you have speakers playing, because the audio is mixed in what we call binaural. So to get that full experience, you definitely want to have some headphones on. So get some headphones on and get ready and enjoy.
Suddenly, Aragorn leapt to his feet.
How the wind howls!
He cried.
It is howling with wolf voices. The wargs have come west of the mountains.
Need we wait until morning then?
Said Gandalf.
It is as I said, the hunt is up. Even if we live to see the dawn, who now will wish to journey south by night with the wild wolves on his trail?
How far is Moria?
asked Boromir.
There was a door southwest of Carahdras, some 15 miles as the crow flies, and maybe 20 as the wolf runs,
answered Gandalf grimly.
Then let us start as soon as it is light tomorrow, if we can,
said Boromir.
The wolf that one hears is worse than the orc that one fears.
True.
Said Aragorn, loosening the sword in his sheath.
Where the warg howls, there also the orc prowls.
I wish I had taken Elrond's advice.
Muttered Pippin to Sam.
I am no good after all. There is not enough of the breed of Bandibus the Bull Roarer in me. These howls freeze my blood. I don't ever remember feeling so wretched.
My heart's right down in my toes, Mr. Pippin.
Said Sam.
But we aren't eaten yet, and there are some stout folk here with us. Whatever may be in store for old Gandalf, I'll wager it isn't a wolf's belly.
For their defense in the night, the company climbed to the top of the small hill under which they had been sheltering. It was crowded with a knot of old and twisted trees, about which lay a broken circle of boulder stones. In the midst of this they lit a fire, for there was no hope in the darkness, and silence would keep their trail from discovery by the hunting packs. Round the fire they sat, and those who were not on guard dozed uneasily. Poor Bill the pony trembled and sweated where he stood. The howling of the wolves was now all round them, sometimes nearer and sometimes further off. In the dead of the night, many shining eyes could be seen peering over the brow of the hill. Some advanced almost to the ring of stones. At a gap in the circle, a great dark wolf shape could be seen, halted, gazing at them. A shuddering howl broke from him, as if he were a captain summoning his pack to the assault. Gandalf stood and strode forward, holding his staff aloft.
Listen, Hound of Sauron,
he cried.
Gandalf is here. Fly if you value your foul skin. I will shrivel you from tail to snout if you come within this ring.
The wolf snarled and sprang forward towards them with a great leap. And at that moment there was a sharp twang. Legolas had loosed his bow. There was a hideous yell, and the leaping shape thudded to the ground. The elvish arrow had pierced its throat. The watching eyes were suddenly extinguished. Gandalf and Aragorn strode forward, but the hill was deserted. The hunting packs had fled. All about them the darkness grew silent, and no cry came on the sighing wind. The night was old, and westward the waning moon was setting, gleaming fitfully through the breaking clouds. Suddenly Frodo started from sleep. Without warning, a storm of howls broke out fierce and wild all about the camp. A great host of wargs had gathered silently and was now attacking them from every side at once.
Fling fuel on the fire,
cried Gandalf to the hobbits.
Draw your blades and stand back to back.
In the leaping light, as the fresh wood blazed up, Frodo saw many grey shapes spring over the ring of stones. More and more followed. Through the throat of one huge leader, Aragorn passed his sword with a thrust. With a great sweep, Boromir hewed the head off another. Beside them, Gimli stood, with his stout legs apart, wielding his dwarf axe. The bow of Legolas was singing. In the wavering firelight, Gandalf seemed suddenly to grow. He rose up, a great menacing shape, like the monument of some ancient king of stone, set upon a hill. Stooping like a cloud, he lifted a burning branch and strode to meet the wolves. They gave back before him. High in the air he tossed the blazing brand. It flared up with a sudden white radiance like lightning, and his voice rolled like thunder.
Now and then I men. Now you come,
he cried. There was a roar and a crackle, and the tree above him burst into a leaf and bloom of blinding flame. The fire leapt from treetop to treetop. The whole hill was crowned with dazzling light. The swords and knives of the defenders shone and flickered. The last arrow of Legolas kindled in the air as it flew and plunged burning into the heart of a great wolf chieftain. All the others fled. Slowly the fire died till nothing was left but falling ash and sparks. A bitter smoke curled about the burning tree stumps and blew darkly from the hill as the first light of dawn came dimly in the sky. Their enemies were routed and did not return.
What did I tell you, Mr. Pippin?
Said Sam, sheathing his sword.
Wolves won't get him. That was an eye-opener and no mistake. Nearly singed the hair off my head.
And there we have it. I wish I could keep going, but that's all we have for today, unfortunately. In future episodes, if we can, it would be awesome to have multiple readings if you guys are into that. And I would love to explore some readings from the Silmarillion or the Fall of Gondolin or anything in the Legendarium. Really, there's so many possibilities for awesome stuff. So I hope you all enjoyed that. I definitely enjoyed making it, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys think of it. And of course, a big thank you to Alan and Shawn and Shersten for being our narrator. Now, we have a lot more to talk about in this episode, so don't go away yet. Now, in these special episodes, we're not going to have a mid-mark segment like we normally do, but I do have a whole second half to get into. Now, really quickly, I want to take this chance to let you all know finally the details of my Patreon for the podcast. So basically how it's going to work is if you're interested in helping me make this happen, then you can go to patreon.com/musicofmiddleearth. There's bonuses for different levels of donations, and you can check that out. Some of them are being able to be a voice on one of these reading episodes, which is going to be really fun. And there's other things like special live Discord episodes that we're going to do where we get together and discuss, and I can show you how I built some of these things. So that's going to be really fun. I won't get into all of the details here because we still have a bunch of stuff to get to in the episode, but definitely check that out if you're interested in helping me make this happen and making it better and helping this awesome community grow. So let's dive into my new segment called Secrets of Sound Design. In this segment, we get an opportunity to explore one of my other big passions and another great layer to why these movies are so well done, in my opinion. We're going to look at an example of something the sound design team created for the movies, how they managed it, and what they did to create it. So today we're going to be taking a look at one of my favorite monsters in the trilogy, the Watcher in the Water. I'm going to start things off in this episode by letting us listen to the actual recording of this creature in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings DVDs. So let's take a listen. So there's a few elements to this that I want to talk about. Usually we should be able to separate these monster characters into a few different categories. We're going to talk about the movement, and then the vocal, and then we're also going to include the environment sounds into this. So let's take a look at the movement for the Watcher first. As Ethan Vanderen, the supervising sound editor and co-designer, explains in the appendices for the Fellowship of the Ring, the vocal element of the Watcher only comes in at the end, so Peter wanted most of this sound design to be about the movement. This movement is made up of two main elements. They're both really simple as well. The first one's actually a plunger. The amazing sound designer who is responsible for so much of the work on this film is David Farmer, and he explains that he really just went to a creek near his house and started playing with the plunger on the rocks and dragging it around and kind of sucking it in and out and creating all these kind of gurgling noises. So here we get to the most exciting part for me of doing this segment. I could have maybe just taken some of the sounds from the appendices and showed you those, but it's definitely way more fun and interesting to just go out and record my own versions of them so I can show you. So I went and tried to create my own kind of environment for these plunger noises, and I set up my mobile recording setup, got my plunger out, and created a few sounds. So let's take a listen to what those sound like just totally on their own, not affected, not altered in any way. As you can hear it, it sounds like a plunger. So simple, but it starts to give that idea of movement. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that sample and I'm going to slow it down and I'm going to pitch it down, and then I'm going to play it back for you so that you can start to hear how it starts to distance itself a little bit from a plunger sound and it starts to become something else. Let's listen. Now, as you can hear as well, I kind of played around with the timing of these. Like I moved them around, kind of found different things that I liked and stacked them up in different ways, and then pitched them down and moved them around and slowed them down. Kind of to create a bit of an otherworldly feeling to it so that it's just a little bit less recognizable. Now, to really make this kind of all glue together and get that environment sounding really nice, I basically just added a big reverb, a big echo to the sound. And that really makes it start to sound like we're right outside Moria. Let's have a listen. Starting to turn into something. So that's the first element of the movement that I got for the Watcher. The second element is actually going to be, again, pretty simple. To get the sound of the tentacles and kind of flying around where they grab Frodo and kind of get cut away by the Fellowship, they used rubber floor mats. They kind of covered them with water and started waving them in front of the microphones at different speeds and kind of sharpness. So that's what I did. And let's listen to that totally on its own. No effects or anything. Again, it doesn't really sound like anything yet. It just sounds like wind or air or kind of rubber movement, really. And that's why doing this kind of thing is so interesting. So again, what I did with that is I started to pitch it down, play around with the timing of some things, and this is how it comes out after doing that. Bit lower, it starts to match the other movement that we had, and then finally I put that same type of Moria reverb onto it to kind of create that environment for it. So let's listen to that. Awesome. So now we get to add the vocal element. This is so much fun. So for the vocal element, they actually used just one sample at the very end when Legolas gets the Watcher with one of his arrows. We hear a groan, and that's actually a walrus groan. So what I did was I grabbed some walrus sounds from online, and again, pitched them down and played around with them and added that Moria reverb. So let's listen to those as they normally are with no alterations. I chose this sample because it has a little bit of that kind of splashing water sound with it as well, so it was perfect for this. So let's listen to that pitch down. Well, it's starting to sound like something. And also when you do that, it pitches the water down as well. So it starts to make that sound like it's in a bigger, deeper kind of cavern, which is perfect. So let's add that Moria reverb to it and hear how that sounds. Really cool. Okay, so now the final moment, we get to piece everything together and see how it all sounds when we add all of those elements together. Let's check it out. This is the Watcher, all the elements. So this is our plunger, our rubber mats, and our walrus all pitched and shifted down to give us my version of the Watcher. And there you have it. That's the Watcher in the Water. All right. I hope you all enjoyed this special episode. Like I said before, these are going to happen every 5 episodes. And I can make them longer and have more readings if you guys like them, because I love doing the sound design stuff as well. In the next episode, we go back to normal and we're in the Shire with the pensive theme. Let's take another listen to that before we end. Very nice. All right. So thank you so much for listening. That wraps it up for this episode. And like I said, if you're interested in helping make the podcast happen and maybe getting in on some bonus stuff, then definitely check out patreon.com/musicofmiddleearth. And if you have any recommendations for the next reading or for the next sound effect that you want to hear, then send that to me at musicofmiddleearthmail@gmail.com. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time.